All right, here we go. Welcome to another episode of the Non-Victim Nation podcast. Today I am here with one of my very good friends, Alex Martinez, who is the owner of Aries East Mesa Brazilian Jiu Jitsu Academy and also the host of his own podcast, BJJ Foxcast. And I think of all the people I know or all the people I've had on the show, you're the only other podcaster that I know. So I thought
Really?
that was really cool. Yeah.
Oh, that'll change. That'll
Yeah,
change.
I'm sure.
2024, new year, new me.
Mhm.
Want to start a podcast, people? We'll start a podcast.
There you
You'll know
go.
a lot more, yeah.
Um, but like I've listened to the podcast and follow along with that, and you're up to like episode 75.
Yeah, we just recorded 77. Wow.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So obviously going strong, having good luck with that.
Well, I'm a very competitive person.
Uh-huh.
And when I started reading on podcasting, I read something that said that most podcasts don't make it like past 2 episodes. Most, you know, I think only like 50% of podcasts make it past episode 25. So like, okay, let's get to 25 or
Right.
26, right?
Yeah.
And then you know, there's millions of podcasts out there, but there might be a few thousand that are active past episode 100.
Right.
So that's kind of the goal. Get past 100, get to 200, and
Nice.
continue that. So I don't want to be. Excuse me, I do that. I apologize. That's why I have that little pedal and I have a little cough pedal at the podcast
Right.
at the studio. But I don't want to be one of those people that used to. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that used to do jujitsu. There's a lot of people that used to ride bikes. There's a lot of people that used to shoot guns, and you know what I mean. And they just don't anymore. And I'm guilty of the gun part. You know, I carry one, but I haven't shot one in like 2 years.
Right.
I know I'm exaggerating, but it's been a while.
Okay.
It's been a while. Yeah.
So I was going to say that like with the podcast thing, the consistency of it, I know is really important.
Mm.
Um, and kind of like you're saying, like there's if you look at like statistics and things like that, people once you hit kind of a certain threshold, you've already left most of the people
In the
behind.
dust. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's really cool that like um the people like over time do you feel like the subject matter has changed or is it always kind of the same?
It's
I mean, because obviously it focuses on
you're very
jujitsu, but
yes, it is focused on jujitsu, but I like to talk about entrepreneurship. I like to talk about how people are evolving,
Mhm.
in their own space, right?
Right.
It doesn't have to be about jujitsu, right? We can have a conversation about anything.
Yeah.
Um, however, once you pick that niche,
Hmm.
your audience kind of dictates a lot because a lot of my listeners are my friends and I
Right.
see them all the time.
Hmm.
And they're like, "Hey, the last episode was cool, but you talked about jujitsu for like 30 seconds." You know what I mean? And they're pissed. So I want
Right.
to keep them happy. So, but one one thing I started doing, I apologize. I'm gonna try to quit doing that. Um, One thing that I was doing is I was getting wrapped up in, getting to that next thing. Like, oh, if I could just get this guy on the show or
Mhm.
that guy on the show, and more people will listen. That's not how it works. Um, there's so many like super. I'm sure in the world that you're in right now
Mhm.
as well. There's so many interesting people in the world that you have a pool sitting right in front of you that you're overlooking because you want that next thing, right?
Mhm.
And then I'll get somebody on the show that's local and it'll be an amazing podcast. It'll be so much fun. We
Yeah.
have a great conversation, learn about their story, and everybody, us included, we have a story to tell. All we
Right.
have to do is get one of these in front of you,
Right.
and you become an oversharer, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
kind of cool. It's kind of cool. And we had a tournament this past weekend, and I'm looking around like that black belt, that black belt, that white belt, that guy. They
Mhm.
all have stories, and one by one, I'll probably get them on the show. So I could
Mhm.
have 2,000 episodes potentially right in front of me. I'm so sorry. 2,000 episodes right in front of me, and I could overlook it because I'm trying to get to that Hegan Machado. By the way, Hegan, if you're watching, I totally want you on the episode. But
Okay.
but you know what I mean? I'm
Right.
looking at that, well, if I could just get this actor that does jujitsu, why?
Mhm.
Why? What are we gonna what other than jujitsu, what do we have in common? Right? His world is totally different than mine.
Right.
But you and I, we have so much in common. We're just regular working people
Mhm.
that live in Arizona, and then we just enjoy podcasting and we enjoy jujitsu and guns. You probably more than me, obviously.
A little bit.
But yeah, so I guess the point is you can hit 100 episodes
Mhm.
right in your neighborhood.
Right. Oh yeah.
So yeah.
So when I started this whole thing, I mean, I had kind of an idea about where I wanted it to go. I didn't realize how big the community was here of things that are related to firearms, not
Mm,
just that in itself, but like all of the different, especially being here in Tech Hub, I've gotten to meet so many different people that teach courses that are like on more of like stop the bleed classes,
yeah.
like really in depth, like first aid, trauma response, women only classes for like self defense and those sorts of things. So not all of that, not everything has to revolve around guns, but I mean,
Right.
it's in an industry where the concept is being prepared
Yeah.
and knowing what to do when shit hits the fan,
Yeah.
because that happens,
Yeah.
and there are so many people that go through life thinking, well, that just doesn't happen here until it does, you know and that's where you have to know these things. You don't want to be the person who's completely panicked and watch somebody that you care about pass away because you didn't know what to do.
Yeah. I mean, and it doesn't even have to be at that level, like stop the bleed type stuff.
Hmm.
What about like jarring? What
Yeah.
about being
Oh yeah.
prepared that way? Right. So have you been to a jarring class? Oh, by the way, yes, you have every gun in the world and thousands of rounds of ammo. And in the right situation, someone would be in trouble. But what if you have to climb something? When was the last time you did a pull up?
Right.
Those are things you can do, and it doesn't take any equipment. It doesn't take a subscription to anything. Just grab a bar and pull yourself up, right?
Right.
And the jarring, canning, stuff like that. That's what people overlook. And I
Hmm.
know people that have built rooms in their house so that they could store food.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they
Yeah.
and they log it and they track it. And those are the people that are prepared. And by the way, if you think, oh, I'll just move in with them, they don't have food for you.
Right.
They don't have food. They don't have a gun for you. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It was 2020 was really telling because I'm by no means a gun enthusiast.
Hmm.
Every gun that I own has a purpose, right? I have a hunting rifle. I have, other stuff that I use for certain things. Like I have a
Hmm.
carry, I have this, I have that. And I don't trick them out. I don't put any money into them other than what I purchased them for.
Hmm.
Okay. So I'm that guy like that you kind of giggle at the range. I'm that guy.
Okay.
But the truth of it is a lot of people that were
Hmm.
I don't want to use the word anti-gun, but they were less enthusiastic than I was about
Hmm.
them. They were like, "Hey, do you have a shotgun I can borrow? Because my neighbor is sketchy and he's less prepared than I am." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it was one of those deals where people were really scared. And then they're
Hmm.
like, and then it didn't really hit the fan, but it could have.
Right.
And they're sitting there going, "Oh shit, I'm not ready."
Hmm.
Now they have to rely on somebody who's like, I don't want to say I'm ready, semi ready,
Hmm.
and pull and take from them. You
Yeah.
know, you that's not okay.
Hmm.
Like you said, you're teaching, you're putting the word out there, hey, be prepared. But I mean, people think that it's buying guns and ammo. It's not. It's way more than that.
Right.
It's way more than that. Like, do you know
Yeah.
how to use a tourniquet? You know,
Hmm.
um, anything like that. So
So that would amount to the same thing as I'm going to buy the best, most expensive gi with great patches and decorations on it, and now I'm great at jujitsu. It's like,
yeah,
no, that
and train
isn't
once a month.
at all how that
Yeah,
works.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. It's literally I equate it to learning a language,
Hmm.
right? If you immerse yourself in a culture, you're going to learn the language. If
Right.
you dabble, you might learn it. You might have an idea,
Hmm.
right? But I'll put it to you this way: when I was hunting, I grew up in South Texas, so we hunted in like West Texas ish kind of, but it was all like blind hunting, where the guy drives you up in the morning, you climb a ladder, and the thing is like completely covered, and it's like a treehouse. I mean, it's like a fort
Right.
on stands. It really is, and you have your heater in there, and some people trick it out and have a comfortable chair.
Right.
Then I moved here and I wanted to hunt here. Very different hunting, right?
Yeah.
Spot and stalk. Some people hunt from their trucks. That's not my thing. But I remember I was up glassing and middle of nowhere, and I realized if I have to move right now, I have all my shit laying all around me.
Hmm.
It's going to take me 20 minutes to gather up all my shit because I don't know what the hell I'm doing because I'm used to hunting out of a blind where you could lay your shit out because there's a guy in a truck. As soon as you kill something, they're going to hear the shot and a truck's going to come. Hey, where is it? And then you collect your, you know what I mean? You collect
Right.
that thing the size of a, dog.
Uh-huh.
But no offense to people hunting. I'm sure there's great deer, whatever. Shut up. Um, I don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah.
But those are the little things. Like being ready isn't just like you said, guns and stuff. But what about when you're driving in your car? And I notice this about myself. I'm only talking about myself. How many times you just take shit out of your pockets and you put it in the passenger seat, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if you flip over and you can't find your glasses because they were there,
Right.
right? And now you're in an accident, the shit flew out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, that's someone else's fault, right? No, that's your fault because it wasn't on you, right? You
Yeah.
can't take care of yourself because you were careless. Yeah, things like that. I think about those things sometimes a little bit too late,
Right.
but those are things that you can prepare yourself to do.
Yeah. Uh, so again, you have your own jiu-jitsu academy.
Yeah.
Uh, a thing that I find most amazing about that is not only did you kind of reach a point where you felt like you were ready to go do that and kind of go off on your own, right? Well, actually, let me take a step backwards.
Mm,
I know for a fact because I've had this thought in my head occasionally. Like when I was younger, I thought, what'd be really cool is like I'll open a restaurant, right?
mm,
And I don't want to run the restaurant. I don't want to manage. I don't want to cook. I just want to own the restaurant and have somebody else like come in and do the work,
yeah.
and you know, but it'll be mine,
Yeah.
right? Well, it's like that's not really true. Okay. Um, so it would be one thing to say I'm gonna start something, but I'm gonna technically let somebody else run it and do whatever, but still call it mine and take full credit for it.
Yeah.
Okay, but you didn't do that. Like not only did you work your ass off to become a black belt, because I've when I met you, you were still a purple belt,
Yeah.
and I mean, you are one of the most dedicated people I know
Thank
for
you.
jiu-jitsu,
Thank you.
and I've always been really totally impressed with that. Um, But like I said, you not only started your own academy, you did it at one of the worst times possible. Okay? You did it during COVID
I did.
when most people were either losing their businesses or trying to figure out how just to keep surviving.
Yeah.
You thought, hey, this is a great time. Let's go start a business.
Well, yes, yes, and no. So, so the idea came about. I think I told you about this before, but the
Hmm.
idea came about when I was sitting in traffic. I think it was February of 2020, maybe January 2020, and I was sitting in traffic. I was going to a meeting for my day job, and I was going to a place that I didn't want. I didn't want to go.
Hmm.
Like I literally didn't want to go. And I'm like, I'm doing this. I've been doing this for 16 years, or however long it's been, and what am I doing? Like, and I'm in traffic with a million of my closest friends, and I'm sitting there like, I don't want to go where I'm going. I don't want to do what I'm doing. I'm only doing this for money, which is it took care of my family. No, I don't want to say anything bad about the industry I was in because it fed my family, got my kids through school. I mean, it was great. It was
Hmm.
great. It really was. And I was paid way more than I'm worth.
Okay.
I promise you that. Um, and I was taken care of by some very good people.
Hmm.
But I sat there and I literally asked myself, what would I do if I could do something for free, right? If I could just do it for free, what do I do? And I'm like, I'm already doing it. I'm
Yeah.
already doing it. I'm already teaching jujitsu at my instructor's place. So that's kind of where it stemmed from.
Hmm.
Incorporated in like March, right before everything went too crazy, because we didn't know it was going to be what it was.
Hmm.
And then we didn't open brick and mortar until August of that year. So
Hmm.
by that time, people were just sick of being told what to do,
Oh yeah.
you know? And, and it was through a lot of hard work that we put this thing together,
Hmm.
and I had a team, I had partners before. And um, what made it a little bit easier was the government was giving away money
Hmm.
to people who were not working and were sick of being told what to do.
Hmm.
So they were getting checks for $1,200, and then they see a jujitsu place and they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, okay. How much is it? Perfect."
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it started. And
Hmm.
and I feel terrible for people who couldn't stay open. And it was probably I mean, I don't want to get you banned, so I'm not going to say anything bad, but it was really hard for people who had been in business for a while,
Hmm.
and especially in the restaurant business where your margins are so razor thin that
Yeah.
if you have a half full place, you might as well close anyway.
Hmm.
And that time of year, that time in our lives, it was very difficult to be in business for them. So
Hmm.
I feel for them. I
Yeah.
feel for them a lot. Yeah.
So with that, I mean, aside from like the cost of opening it and kind of the strategy and whatever, like what were some of the kind of the earlier challenges that you ran into?
Exhaustion.
Okay.
I most people that are going into that world are not my age.
Hmm.
That are like, I'm gonna open an academy. They've probably been competing since they were kids, and got some accolades in their 20s, and now in their 30s are kind of on the far end of their competitive career
Hmm.
at the highest level.
Right.
Okay. And any athlete knows that once you hit that 32 mark, you're kind of on the far end, right?
Right.
Um, but I was 48 when I opened my academy. So I was, my former partner and I were teaching every class. So
Hmm.
the first 4 months they were tough because we are bringing in so many students. We had to add so many classes.
Hmm.
So now we're like there, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. and then grabbing a bite to eat,
Right.
you know, sleeping for, however many hours, getting up at 4:30 and doing it all over again.
Hmm.
And exhaustion was probably the hardest part because you can always find a way to put things together, right?
Hmm.
People just want a place to roll.
Right.
In jiu-jitsu, if you give them a place to roll, they'll we
Yeah.
but we wanted to make it nicer. We wanted to make sure they get to a very clean environment. We clean the mats after every class still.
Hmm.
But we put a lot of effort into the aesthetics of the place too.
Hmm.
Where if we would have just thrown mats on the ground and started teaching, we probably would have done okay,
Hmm.
you know. But you've got to find in any sport or anything that you're trying to grow, you got to find that casual fan
Hmm.
that maybe they're not there because for the jujitsu, but they're there for their community. So
Right.
you give them a place to hang out, right?
Hmm.
So we did a lot of that, and it was a lot of work. But the exhaustion, forget about money, man.
Hmm.
My physical health
Right.
was suffering a little bit
I
because I was just
gotcha.
so tired all the time.
So was there what you would call like kind of a second phase after that where maybe that part tapered off, but then you run into new issues?
Yeah, yeah. So the next part is we start hiring coaches, you
Okay.
know, and you know when you're tired, you don't make it's really difficult to make a really good decision, right?
Hmm.
And being the preparedness that you're talking about, it's a thing. Have you ever done shooting when you're exhausted? Have you?
I have not.
Right. So it's going to
Yeah.
be very different, right? Have you ever done jujitsu when you're exhausted?
Yes.
Yeah. But have you made an important business decision when you're exhausted?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you've got to be really careful that you make the right decision.
Right.
They got to fit the vision, right? They got to fit the community. They got to fit the culture. And if you make a bad choice on a coach,
Hmm.
I mean, it could be costly, right? Because now
Hmm.
you got to, whenever you make a change in any class in
Hmm.
jujitsu, the culture changes.
Okay.
The students will mold into what the instructor is,
Mm.
basically, right? And when you make a change of instructors, now students are like, "Whoa, wait a minute. No, that's my coach, right?
Right.
Why'd you get rid of him?" And so you got to be very careful. So hiring coaches was tough, and we were blessed, man. We had some good friends in the community that wanted to come over and start coaching for us. So had a couple black belts on staff, and then
Mhm.
as you add, you know, one thing I was not prepared for, and I didn't think about this, and I didn't ask the question was, well, what happens when that guy goes on vacation? I'm
Right.
back on the hook,
Yeah.
right? So then, okay, so then you got to adjust your schedules and you got to adjust your
Hmm.
life that way. But yeah, that was the next phase, and
Hmm.
and then now you're talking about payroll.
Hmm.
Oh shit, okay, now I got to pay this guy, and it just built. But it's all good things, right?
Right.
Because you're growing into something else,
Hmm.
right? I am not the same person I was 3 years ago. Thank God.
Right.
I'd kick that guy's ass first off.
Okay.
But business wise, I would run circles around that guy just because of all the stuff that I've learned over the past 3 years.
Hmm. Um,
I don't know if I answered your question.
no, you did.
Did I? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. All right.
So, one of the things that I love most about this, and I try to tell people this before we start recording, this is a very free range conversation.
Cool. Right.
So anywhere we want to go, tangent stories, whatever, I'm totally okay with that because
Can I just
it's
stop for a second? Because your studio is fucking awesome.
okay.
If we're gonna go on a tangent, let's start with the studio.
Okay.
Can you tell me how this thing evolved into what it is right now? Because you started out, for people who don't know, where's the microphone? There's a camera. For people who don't know, this was two microphones and a Zoom recorder
Right.
before it was this studio.
It's true.
I'm so freaking proud of you guys.
Thank you.
Yes. So tell me about how the studio evolved.
So just like you're saying, like when we first started off, I had just kind of a basic idea in my head about what I wanted to do, what I wanted to talk about. And so Hunter and I literally like sat on the couch side by side. I got a microphone, he's got a microphone, and just started talking.
Yeah.
And if you go back and listen to that episode, it's pretty clear that we didn't have a plan. We were just kind of rambling about whatever is coming to our heads,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And over time, we kind of like dialed that in. We actually started creating like some notes. So it's like we had a little bit more of a plan.
Yeah.
Um, I have been very fortunate to meet really incredible people since moving to Arizona.
Hmm.
Um, Moving to Arizona is easily one of the best decisions I've ever made in my whole life because life got so much better after that.
Yeah.
One of the earliest people that I met was you
Mm.
when we decided to start doing jiu-jitsu. And I talked about this in our last time we were together. Like the reason why we picked Nava's place over every place else was because of you.
Oh, thanks,
You
man.
know,
That's cool.
you
Thank you.
know.
Yeah.
It was just cool because we walked into the school and everything was like so welcoming. You know, the environment and the students. You know, and when we saw you, you just kind of lit up like, hey, you you
Yeah.
know, you were like happy to actually see us, right?
Yeah.
And so, um, from from doing jujitsu, I met other people that actually led me to the job that I have now, which is in corrections because John Williams started there before I did.
It's
And
crazy how that works, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and he said this is a great job, which he was totally lying, but
Loves it.
oh, he
He
does.
digs it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
For me, it's just not a good fit.
And that's okay.
Yeah. But I had decided that I wanted to get more into this industry, and I thought, well, probably the easiest way to do that is become firearms instructor. And through through people that I knew, I met Josh Logan, who is the or the owner of Guardian Training Consulting with his wife Karen. Um, and he told me like he's one of the first people that I had on the podcast. Also, he was like two or three people behind you, I think. And he told me about Tech Hub, and I thought that sounds like a really cool place. I got to go check that out. And
Yeah.
when I got here, I met the owner, who was Dan. And Dan and I got along really well. I had him as a guest, and then through just kind of conversation, we decided that we were going to collaborate to build this podcast studio. And I said, came up with a vision in my head. It's like I want it to look like a whiskey bar. So we
Yep.
had that set up,
Mission accomplished.
um, and be able to smoke cigars in there, which we will eventually. Uh, have an American flag, have like really cool stuff on the wall. So
Yeah.
you know, I just had a vision in my head, and we managed to make that a reality. And now because we're here, I have access to even more people. I get to like meet so many more people that do incredible things. They're training all different types of skills and things like that. And I think it's the most amazing thing because they're doing it not because they're focused on the money part of it, which is a big thing. Same thing with you. Like you didn't start the academy because you wanted to be rich. You did
No.
it because you're truly dedicated
Yeah.
to jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
right?
And for those of you starting academies, you're not going to be rich.
Yeah, sure.
Just so you know, you're not
Yeah.
going to be rich.
Um, and so, yeah, like I had no idea that there was that the community was as big and as strong here as it is. It's amazing. And every day I get to meet more people. I get to learn more about them and the stories. Um, and the more I learn about them, the more I want them to come on to the podcast and share those things with other people because
Yeah.
it's really important.
I think what you're doing is I think you're doing it the right way for two reasons.
Hmm.
Number one, like you don't just listen to your show, you don't come off as like I'm the expert, listen to me,
Hmm.
right? You come off as like tell me what you think, right?
Hmm.
And people love telling their story and they like telling you what you think.
Hmm.
Um and as you grow as a firearms instructor and in this world, because
Hmm.
obviously you've immersed yourself in it, you're also growing as a podcaster at the same time.
Hmm.
You're not the leading expert in whatever preparedness or
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Overlanding, and then you're doing your overland podcast and listen to me. Damn it, you're just learning as you
Hmm.
go
Yeah.
on two levels.
Hmm.
I think that's awesome, man. I
Thank
think
you.
that's so
Hmm.
cool. Yeah, yeah. And the difference between you and a lot of people
Hmm.
is a lot of people sit there and think about doing it. You're
Hmm.
just doing it.
Yeah.
You're just doing it. And that's I admire that very much.
So part of that again is thanks to you because you started your podcast before I did. And even though I had been thinking about it, like I wanted to meet, like you and I sat down over coffee
Mhm.
and I started asking questions. It's like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? And you gave me some really good information to get started. And that helped me get over that hump of like, just start,
Just hit record.
yeah,
That was
just
my
start
thing.
doing
Just hit
something.
record.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter because you'll figure it out, or you
Yeah.
won't, but
Yeah. And
yeah.
my first episode is unwatchable.
Yeah.
76 was pretty bad because it's with Tojo.
Uh-huh.
But number one with
Mhm.
Tojo is like unwatchable. Tojo's everybody calls him my co-host. He is not. He
No.
just happens to be a very good guest that I have on. He's not my co-host.
There you go.
But no, he technically is, I guess. But
Mhm.
yeah. So he's a really good friend of mine, also jiu-jitsu black belt. So we talk about we're in the same circle,
Mhm.
and we're talking circle. Like we're always around each other.
Mhm.
And when there's tournaments going on, we're either both coaching or competing. So it's really cool to kind of do a debrief on what went well, what went poorly at the tournament,
Mhm.
what can we do better, what can the tournament do better,
Mhm.
and communicate those things to them.
Right.
Um, but yeah, if you have somebody in your circle like that, like somebody coming up just like you, I
Mhm.
would say hang on. Oh, you got one. You got Hunter with you.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool, man. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Shout out to Hunter sitting in the corner, no camera on him.
Yeah. Hunter's camera is not working today,
Yeah.
so. um, Tojo is one of the people that I've also had on the podcast,
Mm,
and I need to get back in contact with him and have him on again.
yeah.
When we talked with him, the focus was much more on like hunting
Yeah.
because he's got a lot of knowledge in that. And again, that's one of those things that I think people should at least try, or at least understand the importance of it,
Yeah.
things like that.
It's unrealistic to say that if shit hits the fan, we could all become hunters.
Right.
It's unrealistic,
Hmm.
but you can trap stuff. You can learn how to eat things you wouldn't normally eat.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what I admire about Tojo is he only started hunting like maybe 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and he kills a deer every year.
Nice.
Over the counter tags, by the way.
Okay.
Over the counter tags. He puts in a lot of work.
Hmm.
I remember the first year he was so excited. First year he was going to go hunting. He had a mentor that helped him out, but he put in so many hours over the summer
Hmm.
in the desert scouting the area he was going to hunt, and
Nice.
he was successful. I mean, he kills javelina. He killed an elk this past year,
Hmm.
or this year. Um, he's a very successful hunter because he works his ass off,
Hmm.
and it's just something he decided he wanted to do because he got into archery. And most of his kills are bow hunts, by the way. The elk was a bow hunt.
Nice.
Yeah, bull elk bow hunt,
Right on.
first time out. And you know, but again, he he talks about he's very much that guy that wants to know how to do everything.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of people that get into hunting and they say, we actually just talked about this yesterday on the podcast. People get into hunting and they say, "Oh, I want a bow hunt."
Hmm.
So they go to the local archery store and they get, a bow for a couple $1,000, parts and accessories included, right? Arrows are
Right.
not cheap. And they have their guy at the archery shop that does, all the, puts a new string on it. And, every year they do this, they do that, but they never learn how to do that shit themselves.
Hmm.
And the idea behind being prepared is like, you're going to be somewhere where you can't go to archery headquarters. Shout out to archery headquarters.
Right.
You can't go to archery headquarters to get your shit fixed. You got to
Hmm.
fix it yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you tap broadhead to your string, your hunt's
Hmm.
over if you can't fix it.
Yeah.
That thing is razor sharp. It's going to cut your
Hmm.
string, right? So there's guys that are, can do that in the field, and there's guys that cannot. The guys that cannot just spend the rest of the hunt drinking. But that's the thing.
Right.
Understanding, learning your equipment, understand. And here's another thing that I see people do. You go into the woods with like, say, okay, let's say it's a bow hunt, right?
Hmm.
Got a bow, got probably 4 or 5 arrows on you. Okay. You got probably a gun, knife, skinning knife, pocket knife. So you have about, let's call it 8 things that can start bleeding. Do you have anything on you that can stop it?
Right.
Right?
Right.
What are you gonna
Yeah.
do? Cut the strap off your backpack and hope it works, right? Find a stick, make your own
Hmm.
tourniquet, or you could buy a $12 tourniquet and
Right.
just keep it in your pocket in case
Hmm.
something stupid happens.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if you ever watch hunting shows, but you watch people that shoot something with a bow
Hmm.
and they're holding an arrow in their hand and they're like shaking it, like celebrating. The arrow's like this far from their face, right?
Yeah.
6 inches from their neck. And they're
Yeah.
shaking it 'cause they're just excited and they're
Hmm.
doing stupid things because they're excited.
Hmm.
But do they have anything to stop a bleed? That those are the types of things that I think of.
Right.
Again, most of the time too late.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
looking back, I probably should have done that shit. But that's the thing. Like Tojo thinks about those stuffs,
Hmm.
those things, and
Right.
that's why he's a great resource.
Hmm.
But he hasn't been hunting his whole life, which is weird, right?
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah. Uh, so I've got as far as the archery part.
Mhm.
I'm not an expert by any means. I can hit the target. But I definitely need to actually get out and start hunting,
Yeah.
you know?
Get record.
Yeah.
Get your ass out there.
Right.
Call it a bow hike.
Yeah.
Who cares? You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Take your lumps. I mean, I probably walk too heavy to. I probably scare everything in the woods at like 10 seconds in,
Mhm.
but I still get out there. You
Right.
know, as when I can. I mean, I don't get to go out there very often,
Mhm.
but yeah, man, you just I'm really big on learn by doing, and experience takes a long time.
Right.
So you can either do it or not.
Yeah. And another thing that I think people are, it's not that they overlook it, but they don't understand that the only way that you actually learn anything is to do it wrong.
Yes.
You make mistakes,
Yeah.
you know?
Uh,
Um,
so I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
mhm,
the reason the reason don't people don't do it
mhm,
is because they either grew up with family members who like give you shit for messing up
mhm,
instead of saying great job. What do we learn?
mhm.
Right? They're like, see, I told you is such a punchable offense. Anybody who tells you I told you, you should punch them right in the fucking mouth.
All right.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you're not going to learn anything because you're afraid of the I told you guy.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah,
Oh,
that's yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
Um, that thing that goes both ways. Like people who throughout the course of their life have nothing but people like that tell them
Mm,
that they're wrong or that
yeah,
or that
yeah.
they can't do things. There are some people that all they need is just the smallest amount of encouragement
Mm,
and they could be incredible,
yeah,
you know? They they just need someone to say, "Yes, you can do this.
yeah.
Don't stop."
Yeah, so I was
Mhm,
talking to a friend of mine. You should have him on the podcast. He his name's Heston.
mhm.
One of my brown belts.
Piston Silver,
Yeah. So
amazing guy.
yeah, amazing human being, and one of my mentors. And I told him my life story, so to speak, right? All
Mhm,
the things that I'd quit, and all the things that I'd done wrong, and other things that I screwed up. And I always go back to 22 years old, in the Navy. I was fortunate enough to get orders and class up with class 201 at Bud's training.
mhm,
And I went through 4 weeks, 2 weeks of pre-training, about 4 weeks of training, and then we had Hell Week. And in Hell Week, I quit Tuesday, Tuesday morning. Maybe no, it was Monday afternoon. And so I quit. And I don't know why. Honestly, like I wasn't injured. I'm built. I'm pretty durable. Like at even at 51, like I don't have
mhm,
overuse injuries. I mean, I've torn my meniscus, on each knee and had some whatever, but it's never been like overuse injuries, like running injuries where you get like whatever tendons or ligaments, and it's never happened to me. Um, and it was all the head trash. I couldn't shake it, man. I couldn't shake it. It was constant
mhm,
every minute of every day.
mhm,
This is when they get me, right? This is probably the part that I can't do,
mhm,
right? And it was like a million miles of head trash that I couldn't see the end of, right? And then so I quit. And the horrible thing about that is like you don't ring the bell, drop your helmet, and disappear. You're still there.
yeah,
You know what I mean? You see
mhm,
your class running back and forth, and all the instructors are super busy because they work in shifts, right?
mhm,
Everything's scripted, basically, right? For
right,
that week, and all the instructors are really mean to you, with
mhm,
the exception of one. Well, this guy was an asshole to us anyway, but he's our class proctor. He's the guy that's there to teach you how to get through first phase,
mhm,
right? And his name was Campbell, Instructor Campbell. I don't know if he's still alive, but he was just an asshole to us. Like he surf tortured us on a Friday afternoon after training, and I know it wasn't authorized. That prick. But anyway, but I'm walking through the grinder in my Navy outfit,
mhm,
back in my dungarees back then,
mhm,
and I see him, and he yells at me. He's like, "Hey, Martinez," and I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he says, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "You didn't fail a single evolution, and you fucking quit." And at that moment, I didn't feel horrible. I was there was some relief, obviously, right? The stress of it, whatever. Um, but I haven't been able to shake off that conversation in 30 years.
mhm,
That conversation has haunted me for 30 years. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So, we talk about, Heston, and I had the conversation with Heston, and he told me, he was like, you were one mentor away from having a different life.
yeah,
really. Like no one ever told me, hey, you're passing everything, idiot. You know,
Hmm.
you belong here, right?
Right.
It was all head trash. You don't belong here. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. Comparing yourself to other people,
Hmm.
that's death. Don't
Yeah.
do it, right? You're you, be you. You're fucking awesome, right? Um, but yeah, he said so now I live my life by trying to be that mentor to somebody. Like my radar is up all the time.
Hmm.
Like if I could be that one mentor to help somebody go through, you know, their lives and the way they want, man, I want to be that. That's who I want
Yeah.
to be. And it doesn't take much. You know, you don't have to be. It wouldn't have taken another Navy SEAL to be my
Hmm.
mentor. It could have been
Right.
anybody,
Yeah.
right? I just didn't look for that mentor. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's haunted me. But anyway,
That makes perfect sense. Um, when I was growing up, my relationship with my dad was very negative.
mm,
And it was kind of like living with a drill sergeant. I mean,
mhm,
it was a lot of, you haven't done this right. You're going to fail at this, and whatever. Okay. It took a lot of time and uh, a lot of growing up on my part to understand that like at least 50% of whatever issues we had was my fault. It wasn't all just my dad. Okay.
right, yeah,
So rather than trying to blame him for everything and saying that you're the asshole, I realized, no, I'm the asshole too.
yeah.
And like once I came to that conclusion, we sat down and had a very long conversation and managed to like rebuild our whole relationship,
Oh, that's cool, man.
you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
So,
that's
where we are
important.
now, people wouldn't believe if they knew me when we were growing up.
Yeah,
It's pretty extraordinary.
yeah,
Um, there's good and bad about that though. Okay. Because I did grow up that way and had somebody telling me constantly that you can't do something or that you're gonna fail, there was a part of me, the stubborn part that says like, "Fuck you, I'm gonna go do this
teach
anyway."
me. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like, when I signed up to go to the army, he was telling me, "You're gonna flunk out of basic training. They're gonna, you're gonna have to call us up, and we're gonna have to come pick you up, and you're gonna be a failure." It's like the whole time in basic training, no matter how hard the training was or how fucking mean the drill sergeants were, there was never ever a part of me that said, I'm done, I'm gonna quit, you know,
right. Yeah,
ever.
yeah,
I could push and I got in trouble for things, and did I as many as 300 push-ups in a row, you know.
yeah.
And by the time I fucking could barely move, but I would not stop because it's just not part of my character now.
Mm,
Because I did have that experience.
yeah,
And so while I don't wish that on people per se, at the same time, we need hardship in our
yeah.
lives to make us stronger to be able to persevere through those kinds of events.
Yes, but you know what? Life is hard enough without some prick in your life.
Hmm.
You know, it's hard enough.
Right.
And it's so we're this kind of takes me along the path of like mental health.
Hmm.
And November was Men's Mental Health Month. And how many times have you done like I don't know, like Movember? You know what I mean? Grow your mustache out, do your thing, right?
Right.
Have you ever done anything really for yourself that month? Have you ever like internalized, like really think about like where you could improve your health? And we're not talking like physical health, because I
Hmm.
mean we both work out. You train, I train.
Yeah.
Um, but I started thinking about like my mental health.
Hmm.
And one thing that happened when I bought my partners out is literally, I mean, all but one coach left the
Hmm.
academy. I had to replace the entire coaching staff, which has been awesome, by the way. The new coaching staff is fantastic. They're good people. We have a great time together.
Hmm.
They fit the vision. Like the future is going to be awesome. 2024 is going to be awesome. But as coaches started leaving, and it was like not even like, you know, coming up to me saying, "Hey, Alex, I don't like the way things ended," or having the conversation, two-way
Hmm.
conversation. It was they just split. And the worst part was they would wait till I was like, on a long weekend in Mexico,
Yeah.
or visiting family. And
Yeah.
it's very similar to people quitting in Hell Week. It's not dramatic. They just disappear,
Right.
Um, but it was so anyway, so I started thinking like, what am I doing to push people away? You
Hmm.
know, uh, Blaming myself, and
Okay.
which is healthy because you're not blaming anybody else. You're internalizing, but I didn't know how to fix it.
Hmm.
And I still don't. So there's something about me that's pushing people away. Let me find out what that is. And I started seeing a therapist,
Hmm.
and dude, it's been amazing. It's been fucking amazing. Like I've only done a few sessions,
Hmm.
but it's not like, I'm sitting there crying into a pillow and You know what I mean? And
Right.
breaking down and fix me,
Yeah.
she's just, we talk a lot about radical acceptance.
Hmm.
And she's like, feelings aren't good or bad. They just are.
Right.
Mistakes aren't good and bad. They just are. They're mistakes. And the first step is you gotta accept that this is who you are, right?
Hmm.
And then yeah, we're kind of building off of that,
Right.
but understanding what triggers you and what you do about it
Hmm.
is huge. You
Right.
throw a fit, you know what I mean? And how long, and that's okay, but how long does a fit last? Do you hold a
Hmm.
grudge? Those types of things. And
Hmm.
starting to think about those things and writing them down, and it's been helping a ton, dude. Like a
Right.
ton. Because I'm probably still an asshole that pushes people away, but I'm gonna figure out why.
Right.
But yeah, so anyway, so yeah, so we're just talking about that stuff, and I
Right.
think that externally people would look at me and be like, oh, he's got his crap together. No, we're all just big kids, man. We got a lot of
Right.
garbage, a lot of baggage,
Yeah.
and a lot of things we got to work out. And talking to somebody helps,
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I want to put that out there because I
Mhm.
want people to get help, the help they need.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's another misconception I think people have when they look at somebody, especially if they're doing well financially,
Mm,
if they seem like they've got all their shit together, just like you're saying, that doesn't mean they do,
right.
you
Yeah.
know. It just means that they're really good at like building the facade and saying, look at me, I'm fantastic,
Yeah.
you know. But all the while, they're suffering in their own way that isn't visible, maybe even to themselves,
Hmm.
you know. But it's
Yeah.
it's still something that they have to deal with
Yeah.
because if they don't, it's going to find its own way out.
Hmm.
You have so many people like, Hollywood actors and people that are famous that like seem like everything in the world is working for them.
Yeah.
And Anthony Bourdain was an example of that.
Yeah.
He seemed like he had an incredible life,
Yeah. Came
you
back
know?
from drug addiction, and you know what I mean,
Yeah,
and had his, for all intents and purposes, he was very successful.
yeah. He
Yeah.
was even a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
I think he was a blue belt,
Was
maybe
he a blue
purple,
belt?
maybe purple.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I just knew that he had
Yeah.
practice, but
No,
I mean,
he was very dedicated.
yeah.
He actually wrote something. I can't remember what it was, but um, he talked about he used to wait in an alley for his heroin dealer,
Hmm.
and now he was waiting in the alley for the door to the jiu-jitsu place to open so he can go
Right.
train. So yeah, so I think jiu-jitsu was a big part of his recovery.
Hmm.
Obviously he probably went to some mental health facilities and got some help that way too,
Hmm.
but that physical exertion of jiu-jitsu is pretty
Yeah.
amazing for your
Yeah.
mental health.
So I mean, again, you can look at somebody who seems like their lives are happy and perfect. It doesn't mean it is.
Right.
You know, the reality is that we're all still human. We all still have our own shit to deal with, and nobody is perfect. That's not a thing. It's
Not a
not,
thing.
you know. Um, and so I know that between the two of us, we do this a lot. We're gonna throw that back to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
people think that like when they get to their black belt that's it. They've reached the pinnacle. It's like no, that's actually where you just begin to learn.
Yeah. Have you ever driven in like Utah or Montana where you're
Mm.
driving and you're like, oh yeah, it's over by that mountain, and then 6 hours later the mountain looks the same size and you're still driving? That's jujitsu. You're just trying to get to the base of that mountain. You
Right.
know what I mean? And
Uh-huh.
then you know, I think getting your black belt is literally the base of the mountain. It
Right.
really is, because you really start once you start understanding like why you're doing things
Hmm.
instead of what you're doing.
Yeah.
The why is is deeper than any what or how,
Hmm.
you know, and that goes for life. So it's a good metaphor for life. But yeah, the black belt gets you like to a point where I don't know how to explain it, man. Like you're literally a white belt again,
Hmm.
because you're climbing up that ladder again.
Right.
Because it's very telling. Like when I compete in at Master Worlds, my age, I'm
Hmm.
Masters 5, so I'm with old guys. But I can tell the old guys that live the life,
Hmm.
take care of their bodies, they study, they're living the life. And the guys that are just happy to be there,
Right.
guys that are just happy to be there, they're done in 10 seconds, right?
Uh-huh.
It's the guys that, they're legends in the sport. The
Hmm.
last guy I lost to, it was in the third round of Master Worlds. I beat the first guy like, oh man, it was like 14-0. I submitted the second guy. Those were the happy to be there's.
Hmm.
And then I met the guy that lives the life. And I
Right.
was like, holy crap, he was granite. And he was
Nice.
He was the founder of BJJ Revolution.
Okay.
I think he had maybe 5 stripes on his black belt. Yeah.
Wow.
So this is a guy that has dedicated his life to jiu-jitsu. So for
Mhm.
me to beat him, I would have to have the perfect day, and he would have to have a really bad day.
Right.
And we went the distance. He beat me 3-0, but those are the guys that live the life, like
Yeah.
really, really live the life. And that's the true student of the game. And
Mhm.
those are the guys when they talk, I shut up
Right.
right away. So, um, and I think that's something I learned early on with Paul
Mhm.
Nava, our instructor.
Yeah.
Um, Paul taught me, like, yes, you can help your training partner, but as soon as the black belt walks up, shut up,
Yeah.
because they are going to start talking about the why, not the what, and
Mhm.
you got to listen to that why.
Right. That's a good way to think of it.
Yeah.
Um, so in listening to the podcast, I've heard you at different points have conversations with people about, being a black belt and having your own academy. There's like a sense of like imposter syndrome.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So can
Every
you
day.
talk about that a little bit? Mhm.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
I really don't think it's a bad thing. It forces me to study more
Mhm.
and watch what people are doing at the highest level. And I'm not talking like Gordon Ryan, stuff like that. No, the instructors that are teaching at the highest level. That's what I'm
Mhm.
studying. Um, like yes, I like watching the latest and greatest stuff, the most cutting edge stuff.
Mhm.
But I kind of backtrack it and find out where that fits into life or jujitsu fundamentally,
Mhm.
right? Um, yeah, so it's really simple, man. Like, I'm a black belt, but so is Kishinio.
Yeah.
Do you think for a second I compare myself to him? Do you think for a second I go,
Mhm.
hey, you know what else you could do in that move?
Yeah.
No, no. But you know what? If I did, he would listen, because that's
Right.
just the kind of guy he is. But I have way too much respect for his accolades and everything he's done in the sport.
Right.
Same thing with like Samir and Milton. And
Mhm.
the list goes on and on. Kenny Kim, all those guys.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, when you have no idea. When I got my black belt, they were all there.
Really.
Yeah. So the feeling you got when you walked into the jiu-jitsu academy for the first time, you put
Uh-huh.
your white belt on, you're standing in line, you're like, okay, it's the feeling I got when I got my black belt.
Okay.
Like, okay, now I'm going to stand with these guys over here, and no one's stopping me.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from. There's always somebody. It's that bigger fish in the ocean, man. There's always a
Right.
bigger fish out there. So you have to, and that I don't think it's a bad thing, because
Mhm.
it pushes me to be better,
Right.
right? To learn my craft and to teach my students properly. And
Mhm.
everything for me goes back to fundamentals.
Right.
I love watching all the cool new stuff,
Mhm.
but as you're watching it, if you don't understand fundamentals, you can't see the foundation of that move that this
Mhm.
guy, Gordon Ryan and all those guys are doing,
Mhm.
because it's all based on fundies,
Right.
all of it.
Mhm.
And when you see it, you're like, "Oh, that was beautiful," right?
Mhm.
And those are the innovators, right? Eddie
Yeah.
Bravo, those guys, those are the innovators that take the fundamentals and they grow it into this beautiful flower. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So
Right.
yeah.
For people who have never done jujitsu, they don't quite understand probably what you're saying there.
Mhm.
Do you have like a different way that you could explain that?
Okay, so let's talk about fundamentals, right?
Okay.
So the closed guard,
Mhm.
the rock on which this sport was built,
Right.
literally.
Mhm.
Okay. If you take somebody who's never done jujitsu and you teach them 4 things from the closed guard, the most fundamental piece, right?
Mhm.
And you teach them something simple like a sweep,
Mhm.
right? Sweep to mount, show them how to do a mount, right? Those
Right.
are 2 very fundamental things that are probably the most effective things in jujitsu. Number one, the guard will keep you from getting punched in the face,
Mhm.
right? The mount will help you overpower and control a person like they've never been controlled before,
Mhm.
if you know how to do it.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you know your leg placement, if you know your hand placement, if you know what to look for, those
Mhm.
are fundamental things. Now, when you take um, that fundamental piece, like sweep to mount to a Marcelo guillotine from mount, you're like, holy crap. But he had all of the checkpoints marked to
Right.
get to the guillotine. Now
Mhm.
you get somebody who's new who thinks, okay, if I get this guy on his back and I just jump on his neck, I can probably do the Marcelo team. Can't. He
Right.
can't. Marcelo is so far advanced from
Mhm.
that point because his fundamentals are so sound
Mhm.
that he can execute that advanced move
Mhm.
from a fundamental position. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yes.
Okay. So understanding fundamentals, I could teach somebody fundamentals and have them overpower somebody, or I hate to use the word overpower, but control
Hmm.
somebody who has no experience. 6 months, easy,
Right.
easy. Close guard, mount, back take, side control, very, very basic stuff.
Hmm.
But all of the advanced stuff that you see, all the cool things, acrobatic stuff that you see
Right.
in tournaments that these
Yeah.
kids are doing, it all comes from those fundamentals.
Right.
And the guys that are executing the advanced moves at the highest level have very good fundamentals.
Hmm.
It's incredible how good their fundamentals are.
Right.
But without that, you're just doing stuff.
Hmm.
I've rolled with people who are very talented purple belts, young guys,
Hmm.
but they can't. I was able to hang with them, even though they're 25 years younger than I am,
Hmm.
because their fundies are garbage. They're just moving for the sake of moving. They're
Right.
creating all of these gaps that they don't need to create. They're
Hmm.
accepting a good position instead of going for a great position and then forcing me to make a mistake.
Right.
That's the difference between a fundamentally sound jujitsu player and a
Hmm.
not fundamentally sound jujitsu
Right.
player. So anybody starting jujitsu today who thinks, man, I just want to start rolling, stop. You're listen. I tell this story all the time. I was 5 years in purple belt. I got mounted and armbarred in a tournament. I got mounted because I couldn't escape. Oh, I'm sorry, I got armbarred because I couldn't escape mount. Because
Hmm.
the guy that mounted me was a really good purple belt, and I
Hmm.
was not.
Okay.
When I learned that, I was like, oh shit. I had to take a giant step back and really
Hmm.
start, because I spent the better part of 2.5 years just trying to win tournaments.
Okay.
I wasn't taking the time to build that foundation properly,
Hmm.
right? And then I had to take a giant step back and build it.
Right.
So when you came along, that's the time when I was studying. I was a complete nerd
Hmm.
studying jujitsu. I had pages and pages and pages of notes. And then I would take the notes and consolidate them into index cards. And the index cards I would read before I taught class, and then I would teach you the
Hmm.
stuff that I was studying.
Right.
But had I taught you stuff from the guy that had the guy that got mounted and armbarred in that tournament taught you stuff, I would have screwed you. I would have messed you up,
Hmm.
because I would have taught you things that would have helped you win tournaments,
Right.
which is not what you want to learn.
No.
Not what you, and I tell this to new people all the time. A rising tide raises all ships. If you show up, you're going to get better, but so is the next person that always shows up. It's just the way it
Right.
is, right?
Yeah.
And if they're better than you, they'll probably stay better than you. It
Hmm.
sucks, but it's the reality. Um, but if you don't look at it from this perspective and you think, I'm doing this to beat everybody outside of these four walls who doesn't know what we're doing,
Hmm.
that changes your life. That changes your perspective. Um, I've had people invite friends. Um, one of the guys, one of my blue belts, he's stationed in he was in, gosh, I want to say he's like South Sudan.
Hmm.
I think he is right now. Anyway, he's a Marine. When he was in the delayed entry program, he brought his recruiters in, dominated them. And they were like, they had their little brown tab on their thing for their combatives that they do, which is solid.
Hmm.
However, Colin just dominated him. Mount.
Right.
I mean, I always use I always use the mount because that's like near and dear to my heart. I want to get to mount as soon as possible because I
Hmm.
can just control you.
Right.
Um, but I developed that over 10 years. It
Hmm.
wasn't something I learned in 6 months. It was a
Right.
10-year journey to get to where I am now with the mount. And it's not perfect,
Hmm.
right? I'm still learning how to perfect the mount position, which is crazy fundamental,
Hmm.
right? And that's what I love about jujitsu, man, because I'm not there yet.
Right.
So I don't even know if I answered your question. Another freaking tangent.
No, that's great.
Yeah, we'll talk about your studio again
Mhm.
here in a second.
Yeah. Um, I guess the point that I was trying to make there is that like people have this idea in their head that like once they get to a certain point that's kind of the end. They've learned all there is to learn, and it's
Yeah.
like that is it's the complete opposite. When you get to that point, that's when you start to reach understanding. It's
Mhm.
not just that you've learned whatever it is. It's like now you understand everything that went into that and why it's important.
Yeah.
Not just that it is, but why.
And you've applied
You
it
know?
so many times
Yeah.
that when people say, well, what if they this, you almost get pissed off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you're talking about what ifs. Like, you know how many what ifs there are in life?
Hmm.
Like,
Right.
it's a lot. Yeah. What if I have to go to the bathroom while I'm rolling? I'm
Hmm.
going to roll differently. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, what if, what if? I hate what if questions.
Right.
Jujitsu, the way somebody told me once is jujitsu is just technique and um, adjustment.
Hmm.
That's all it is. There is no what if. It's just technique and adjustment,
Right.
right? What if the guy doesn't have arms? Well, I can probably cross collar choke him pretty easy,
Yeah.
right? So it's technique and adjustment.
Right. Um, so, and I know that like on your podcast, you've had John Cabe, Paul Nava,
Hmm.
and at least one or two other of like the instructors.
Yeah,
Um,
Vinny.
yeah,
Yep.
Vinny. When you're having conversations with them, do you, I guess, identify things that are like very common that you all share being in that position of like having their own academies?
Yeah. I
Things that
mean,
stand out to you?
yeah. So in my podcast, I always ask black belts like, what do you want all of the black belts that you promote to have in common? And the
Hmm.
common theme is like, be a good person.
Right.
Don't be a dick. Like, so I don't know if you're allowed to cuss, but I'm gonna,
Yes.
um, because it's just what I do.
Hmm.
But there, I remember hearing Jay Pages talk about jujitsu and building a culture, and he said that if you think somebody in the academy is an asshole, just wait. They all leave. They
Right.
all leave. You will not find somebody that at a brown belt or black belt level that people are like, this guy's just a jerk. You don't find those. They all leave. Because a lot of what they do is ego driven,
Hmm.
and you want to talk about an ego check, do jujitsu.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I don't care how big you are or what you did or how many street fights. That's my favorite. How many street fights you've had,
Right.
you'll get humbled.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's really it. Like, you know, if you're an asshole, you probably won't be in position to get a black belt.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, that's not 100% of the time because there are assholes. There's people that have hurt people, in ways that I don't care to talk about,
Right.
as black belts and that's not a function of jujitsu. That's a function of their ego and the the position that they hold getting to their heads,
Okay.
and that's not okay. I hope
Hmm.
those guys die a fiery death.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Hmm.
mean that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good to know.
yeah.
um, Kind of along that same line, are there challenges that you all sort of that you recognize among each other?
Um, yeah. I mean, everybody's wanted to quit at
Hmm.
one point in their lives. You know, um, it's really easy to just not show up.
Hmm.
It's really easy to replace jujitsu with like drinking or hanging out with old friends or using things as an excuse to
Hmm.
not show up. But I think one thing we all have in common is like we overcame that just because we love the camaraderie, and
Hmm.
setting goals is huge. If you set goals on something, you will, whatever you put your energy towards will grow.
Hmm.
And I think that's because I don't think any of us started as a white belt going, man, I'm going to get my black belt one day and I'm going to open a gym and I'm going to do this. I don't think anybody started that's an evolution,
Right.
and it's a beautiful evolution because like you start coaching one day and you can help people develop.
Hmm.
You start, but it starts with you. You
Hmm.
you develop as a coach at one point, and then you kind of you don't really notice that until later. But then
Hmm.
you're coaching and you see people develop, and then you decide I'm going to open an academy, and then you watch people's lives change. You're like,
Hmm.
whoa, that's awesome. Um, and I think that's the allure. Like if you I think you don't go from a competitor to academy owner. You
Right.
go from like a new guy, maybe competitor, coach, and then you're like, okay, I can do this. Like this is
Hmm.
what I want to do.
Right.
So I think for all of us, it was an evolution of
Hmm.
sorts. But the commonalities are that we just decided we weren't going to quit.
Hmm.
That's really it.
Right.
Like that. This is we there's a love for jujitsu that we can't explain.
Hmm.
There's just a love for it. It's almost like having another child. Like
Okay.
how much how can you nurture this kid into something, amazing? I know we're gonna catch shit for that one, but it feels that way,
Hmm.
you know. Yeah, that's if I could find like one commonality, like we all just want to help people
Hmm.
grow into the best thing that they can be that mentor
Yeah.
that people need. So yeah, that's for, at least for me, I
Right.
can only speak for myself, but if I can, if I were to speak for the group, I don't think they'd argue that point.
Hmm. From my perspective, that seems like the most common thing of because I don't know John as well. I know Paul a little bit more. Um, but I listen to the things that they talk about. You can definitely hear it in the way that they describe things, and they're very passionate about teaching, um, because it's important, you know, because it gives them a sense of fulfillment because
Hmm.
they're actually getting to impart
Hmm.
all of the things that they've learned onto other people and hopefully make them better people,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and I think that's probably the most important part is that anybody that does anything with that in mind, you know, of helping other people, making them better. This is not for us. This is not to make me better as a person. This is to make the world a better place. This is hopefully going to do something somewhere along the line that helps somebody be better,
Hmm.
live a happier life,
Hmm.
do something that makes them fulfilled and help them get to where they should be,
Yeah.
so that they don't have those moments that you had in the military,
Yeah. Yeah.
or that, you don't think,
Or if you do, it's for the right reason.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I always think of The Lion King, when Mufasa was talking and he said, look inside yourself. You are more than what you have become.
Mm.
We are all so capable of being more and doing more. And most people don't realize it. You know, we can be fantastic. We can be extraordinary if we put our minds to it, if we put our heart and soul into it and say, this matters, we can do anything
Yeah. 100%.
and make this whole world a much better place to
Hmm.
be in.
Yeah. So I really like having this conversation with people about about the limits.
Hmm.
Like, people will always tell me that's the thing about teaching adults. Adults come with way more baggage than kids will ever come with. Kids are just
Right.
like, they either don't want to be there because their parents are making them be there, or
Hmm.
they want to be there because their friends are there and they just want to
Hmm.
have fun, right?
Right.
And they learn some shit along the way. But adults will always tell you what they can't do.
Right.
Right? Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. So I like to have this conversation like, would you ever tell your son or daughter that they can't do something? I'm like, well, no, of course not. I'm like, then why are you telling yourself that? Like,
Right.
why don't you give it a try? Right? Or why don't we develop skills to get there? Right?
Hmm.
There's people, I've taught some people who can't do a front roll. They're
Hmm.
just too heavy,
Yeah.
you know? But I I always use Corey. She was one of my students years ago. Um, she would come in and she would never tell herself that she couldn't do something. She was
Hmm.
she was heavier. She's not that way anymore. I think she's running marathons now.
Nice.
Yeah, but she would do the action of the front roll without
Hmm.
executing it.
Hmm.
She would just walk, like everybody else in that the line drills. People that do jiu-jitsu know what I'm talking about. You hate these,
Yeah.
but she would walk and then she would do like the arm under as if she's going to front roll, and then I think within 6 months she's front rolling, she's
Nice.
back rolling, she's hip escaping.
Hmm.
But because someone in her position could be like, well, I've had kids and I have family and I have, all this stuff. I can't do this stuff. She
Hmm.
didn't tell herself that one time, you
Hmm.
know? And I think that's a real shame when people just limit themselves that way. Now, some people do have physical limits, right? They have
Right.
fused backs and necks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Alex, I can't do that. Gotcha. No
Yeah.
problem. Right.
Right.
No worries. But there's something you can do. I bet there is. Right.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's like people who run off the mat when they're exhausted.
Hmm.
We just defeated the whole purpose. If you
Yeah.
do nothing and stay on the mat, I'm happy.
Yeah.
It's about staying on the mat for the hour,
Right.
right? Just stay on the mat. Do what you can.
Hmm.
But people exert themselves and they're like, oh, tearing their gi off, being all dramatic, walking to the bathroom. And I'm just like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Just stay on the mat.
Yeah.
Um, because there's people that have had it way worse
Hmm.
that have probably done it better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's
Right.
plenty of people that have had it way worse that are doing it just fine.
Yeah.
I got a guy right now, big dude, beard, and he was about to fall out, and I sat him down, and we just talked a little bit, and people are coming up to him like, "Hey, hang in there. You know, we've all been there. We've all been there." They don't know that this guy does radiation every day. He's
Mm-hmm.
sick,
Yeah.
but he also does jiu-jitsu every day.
Wow.
Yeah, he's not well, but he does jiu-jitsu, and he's just like he goes, "My doctor cleared me, and this is what I want to do. Awesome, let's go."
Yeah.
You know, and he pushes himself every day. Some days are better than others, but this
Mm-hmm.
particular day was really bad. Like I
Mm-hmm.
thought he was going to fall over, so I sat him down. And we're just talking, you know, and I know his situation, but other people don't. And they were taking it as if, "Like, this guy's just out of shape." No, he's not.
Mm.
He's just going through it, you know.
Right.
And a lot of he doesn't have an excuse. He has a reason
Yeah.
not to do everything
Yeah.
right,
Right.
and he doesn't use it. Like he doesn't use it as a crutch. He just does what he's got to do, and
Right.
I admire that very much about him.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Um, are there are there any or is there anything that you feel like you want people to know or understand more? People that are considering jujitsu who have not necessarily made that leap or are concerned that they're going to get injured and that kind of thing. You know.
You know, I had a guy. Um, oh gosh, what's his name? He's from his school is called ROL Jiu-Jitsu. Oh my, why can't? Oh, what's his name? It's gonna haunt me. I'm so sorry, brother. It'll come to me.
Hmm.
But he said something really profound on the podcast, at least for me as an academy owner. He says people don't want to be embarrassed, they don't want to be hurt, and they don't want to be wrong.
Okay.
Okay, that's our natural tendency when we walk into a place.
Right.
Um, and I said this on one of my podcasts recently. I was like, when you walk in there and you get on the mat and you tie your belt, like you're one of us now,
Hmm.
right? And we're going to take care of you.
Hmm.
That's the environment that I want to create in general.
Hmm.
That's not true for every place. Okay.
Right.
So people tend to pick their academies based off convenience. Dude, you're a block away. I'm training here,
Yeah.
right? Well, the person could be a freaking maniac for all you know? So I would say don't commit right away. I said,
Hmm.
I'll say, do your homework,
Yeah.
ask people, do some trial classes and just see what the right fit is for you. You will know what the right fit is for you because I
Right.
did it, right? I went to a couple different places and when I walked into Nava, I was like, this is home.
Hmm.
I want to be here.
Yeah.
Um, and but there are some people, and I'm not going to name any names because there's so few.
Hmm.
That's the tricky part. There's so few that are just not. It's just not a good place for everybody.
Right.
Okay. Um. So do your homework. Um. Pick a place that feels right,
Hmm.
and at the same time, the second your needs change, or the culture changes,
Hmm.
or the values of the people in the culture change, you can leave.
Right.
You can leave and go find another spot. By that time, you kind of know the community
Hmm.
and you'd be like, you're a little bit farther, but hey, I'm going to drop in. And
Right.
they'll be like, yeah, come on in. They know the deal. They know why.
Hmm.
And when people come from other schools, I always think about who's the black belt there? Oh, he's a good dude. I wonder why. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
and I'm not afraid to have that conversation with people. I'm like, I'll ask them like, is there, not what happened,
Hmm.
but how have your needs changed that makes you want to make the change,
Hmm.
right? I don't want to hear gossip. I want to hear like, well, they're too big into competition and I just want my kid to have fun. Awesome.
Right.
Cool. That's a need that has changed, right?
Hmm.
Maybe the kid wanted to be competitive, realized that they have no choice but to live the life
Right.
and they're like, screw this, I just want to play. Cool. Yeah, that's find a different environment. But yeah, I mean, you're not, gosh, man, I don't want to get you in trouble. Once you're so deep in
Uh-huh.
to a culture, to a school,
Hmm.
that you get your black belt, you are tied to that black belt forever.
Okay.
Whoever gives you your black belt, that's going to be the person that has always, no matter if you leave, move, whatever, you're
Hmm.
tied to that person, like reputationally, forever. So if the person is not a good person
Hmm.
and you get your black belt from them, you're automatically tied into that. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, it's sort of like lineage.
Lineage is really important.
Yeah.
At least to me, it
Mhm.
is. But just be very careful who you choose, right? And if your needs change, move.
Right.
It's that simple. I mean, I know it's harder for people because
Mhm.
egos kick in. We don't want to be wrong. Like, I don't
Right.
want to be wrong about this
Right.
decision, but it's okay to move. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. So if it's not working for you, try something else.
Try something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean,
But try.
but try. Yeah.
Yes.
Try. Yeah. I mean, there's, there's so many good people out there, so many good black belts out there. It's going to be really difficult to find an asshole. It's going to be really difficult. So
Right.
yeah. So just jump in. And as far as getting hurt goes, don't keep up with anybody.
Yeah.
Do you like, it's just like going into like a EOS Fitness or LA Fitness or whatever the hell, like
Mhm.
Sporto, whatever they're called now. Like, do you go in there and find the youngest, buffest person and be like, I'm going to do everything they're doing? No, we don't
No.
do that, right? We get on the treadmill and we're like, okay, where's the nearest exit? Because this sucks, right? I want to get the hell out of here. So, but you're doing what you
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
right? And then you start working your way into weights, and maybe you hire a trainer, maybe you don't.
Mhm.
I don't care. But same thing with jujitsu. Like, go in, do what you can,
Mhm.
and try to do the techniques that they're teaching you, and just learn about your body, learn what you can and can't do, and overcome those can'ts, right?
Right.
Slowly but surely. And it takes time. I don't know if I answered your question again.
You did.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So this is kind of like the wrap up part of the conversation. And the last thing we generally ask is, what's your best dad advice?
My best dad advice,
Yeah.
dude, it's simple. Don't think, just do it.
Okay.
Don't think, just do it, because you're going to be 10 years deep thinking, man, I wish I would have taken that kid fishing more. I'm serious. You can make money. Trust me. What what being an academy owner has taught me is you can survive on way less than you're making now.
Okay.
Way less than you're making now. So if you got to take a day off, take the day off, man. Take your kid fishing. Just be with them.
Mhm.
Um, there's they don't give a shit about the bike at Christmas. They give a shit that you've been around for 12 months and they know you.
Mhm.
That's what the kids know. And it's if you know if you met a kid, and we're kind of in the same boat. We grew up with the same kind of dad, just
Mhm.
but generally, right?
Right.
When I met kids that knew everything about their fathers, I'm like, what fucking planet did you grow up on? Like, I'm gonna get the
Yeah.
fuck out of the way, kid. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if you could do that and just make them the priority for your time, right? You
Mhm.
got to, for your time, you can't go wrong. Don't
Yeah.
think, just do it.
There you go. Good answer.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Again, I am really happy that I finally managed to get you back on the podcast. I know that you're incredibly busy because you got lots of shit going
I
on.
got a couple things going.
So, but yeah, I love talking to you.
Yeah, man. And listen, Hunter, you as well, man. I know I'm not as good a friend as I could be to you guys, and but I want you guys to know that you mean a lot to me, and I mean that.
Yeah, that goes both ways. I
Yeah,
mean, you are one of my best friends, even if we don't spend that much time together.
yeah.
And beyond that, you are somebody that inspires me in a lot of ways. Um, I can't think of anybody who is more dedicated to an idea and doing something that is important in the world than you.
Thanks,
That
man.
means a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you
Mm,
both.
we love you.
Thank you, man. I love you too.
All right. Take care. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, you can now support the Non-Victim Nation by donating via listener support directly on Spotify. Remember, the story of your life is being written right now, and you are the hero.